Most people think tattoos are about expression, identity, freedom, wrong. Some of the most disciplined, self-controlled people you'll ever meet never get tattoos. No ink, no marks, nothing permanent. And it's not because they're boring. It's because their brains work differently. You see someone covered in tattoos, you assume confidence. You see someone with none, you assume nothing. That's your first mistake. Because people who never get tattoos usually share a specific set of traits. Traits that give them an unfair advantage in life. I'm about to show you exactly what they are. And by the end of this, you'll start seeing these people very differently. Chapter 1. Long-term thinking. Most people think tattoos are harmless. Just art on skin. Wrong. A tattoo is a permanent decision made in a temporary emotional state. Psychologists call this temporal discounting. Humans naturally prioritize short-term rewards over long-term consequences. That's why you scroll instead of work, eat junk instead of train, and yes, get tattoos based on how you feel right now. But people who never get tattoos, they resist that impulse. They zoom out 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. They ask one question most people avoid. Will I still want this later? Research from Stanford on delayed gratification, the famous marshmallow experiment, showed that people who resist immediate impulses perform better across life. Better careers, better health, better decisions. People who don't get tattoos are constantly running that internal filter. Not just on ink, on everything. Relationships, money, career moves. They don't chase the moment. They optimize the timeline. But here's the problem, though. Long-term thinking alone can make you slow, overthinking everything, missing opportunities. So there's a second trait. Chapter 2. Identity independence. Most people think tattoos are personal. Wrong. They're social signals, symbols, trends, belonging. You don't just get a tattoo. You get a style, a tribe, a message. Sociologist Irving Goffman called this impression management. Humans constantly shape how others perceive them. Tattoos amplify that. But people who never get tattoos, they don't need that layer. They don't outsource identity to visuals. They build it internally. No symbols, no shortcuts, just behavior. You think they lack expression? Wrong. They just don't perform it. They don't need strangers to understand them at a glance. They're comfortable being misunderstood. That's rare and powerful, because when you stop managing perception, you gain cognitive freedom. No pressure to maintain an image. No need to stay consistent with a past version of yourself. You can evolve completely. But here's the thing. Even that isn't enough. Because you can think long-term, ignore social pressure, and still make impulsive decisions. That's where the third trait comes in. Hit subscribe before you forget this. We rewire your thinking here. Chapter 3. High self-control. Most people think self-control is about willpower. Wrong. It's about systems. Roy Baumeister's research on ego depletion shows that willpower is limited. You can't rely on it forever. So smart people remove temptation entirely. They don't fight impulses. They avoid creating them. A tattoo? It's not just a decision. It's a test. Impulse versus restraint. Emotion versus logic. Now, this doesn't mean tattoos are bad. That's not the point. The point is pattern recognition. People who consistently avoid irreversible decisions tend to have stronger inhibitory control. They pause, they wait, they question, while everyone else acts. This shows up everywhere. They don't send emotional texts. They don't make reckless purchases. They don't burn bridges impulsively. They create space between feeling and action. And in that space, that's where intelligence lives. But here's the problem, though. Too much control can make you rigid, too calculated, too safe, which leads to the final trait. Chapter 4. Optionality mindset. Most people think commitment is strength. Wrong. Blind commitment is a trap. People who never get tattoos value optionality. Keeping doors open. Future flexibility. Economist Nassim Taleb talks about this. The ability to adapt beats the need to be consistent. A tattoo locks in identity. A moment, a belief, a version of you. But what if that version changes? It will. People evolve. Fast. What you love at 20, you question at 30, you forget at 40. People without tattoos understand this. They don't freeze themselves in time. They stay fluid. And that flexibility compounds. In careers, in relationships, in thinking, they pivot faster, adapt quicker, regret less. Because they didn't anchor themselves to outdated identities. Now let's be clear. This isn't about tattoos. You can have tattoos and still be disciplined. You can have none and still be lost. But patterns don't lie. Most people react. A smaller group reflects. That's the difference. And if you've never wanted a tattoo, there's a good chance you're already wired differently. More controlled, more future-focused, less influenced. And that's an advantage most people will never understand. But here's the thing. Even if you have these traits, there's still one problem. Most people never learn how to use them. They think differently, but act the same. That's why I made this video breaking down how to turn these traits into real-world advantages. Watch it next.